For those of you that have followed this series thus far, you kind of know how this particular stream type goes. We have a look at some winners from the Grand Prix, some people that have done well for themselves. We have a look at like a couple of small stories, and then we will have a major talking point. The one problem with that is the Austrian Grand Prix, in my mind anyway, provided about four big talking points. Um, and I don't know if we can do a video that long. Now, thankfully, we can sort of merge a couple of the talking points amongst the winners, and we will obviously discuss that. And we'll look at it in terms of order of passion for myself. There's one that stands out to me above the rest of them, but they're all worth talking about, all of them. So let's start off straight away. Let's have a look at the winners from the Austrian Grand Prix. And normally we look at like sort of the ones that didn't necessarily win the race but performed well. And I suppose the big one to talk about is Sauber. My goodness me, does anyone remember a few races ago that we were still calling them the green wheelie bins, and we were thinking that Nico Hulkenberg was just wasn't doing it justice in terms of he was finishing in the top 10, he didn't deserve to be in the top 10. That feels a very long time ago now, especially in that last race. It almost felt like Sauber had the fourth best car. Slowly but surely, they're starting to grow legs here. It's starting to improve. This car is looking good. And, whilst a lot of the focus, no doubt about it, is going to be on Bortoletto, and he was incredible. And the fact that he was disappointed that he didn't get 7th place, I mean, that's one thing to mention. But he outperformed, his usual self. I might be wrong, but I think I could see a few more top 10s over the next few races for Sauber. And Gabi Bortoletto, maybe he'll struggle, he'll get 11th places or anything like that, but very impressive stuff. The one that's the obvious one is obviously Lando Norris. And I'm going to sort of cycle back on what I said in the review for the Canadian Grand Prix and the fact that he's not World Championship material. He did well under pressure, fantastically well under pressure. Yes, there was a couple of times where he was squirrely. And look, in terms of the actual McLaren battle between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, there are going to be those that claim that Oscar Piastri was very unlucky. Lando Norris was very unlucky. That side of things, there'll be that tit for tat. There'll be that battle between the fans in terms of who was lucky, who was unlucky. Maybe the look edged a bit more towards Lando Norris, but take nothing away from the performance. I think what sort of takes it away a bit for me, though, is the radio messages. Sometimes the radio messages were so intense in their coaching that it almost felt like Will Joseph was driving the car, not Lando Norris. It feels a bit weird to be told almost how to drive the car. You need to be better in turns 1 and 3 was an obvious one, and then it just felt a bit off. But I'm going to put that down to maybe the media are showing those radio messages a bit more than others. That there are other drivers in the grid that are getting that push. And actually, come to think about it, when Mercedes had their dominance, Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton would both get sort of instructions, and especially around the Austrian Grand Prix, about that. So fair play. Does this mean that I think Lando Norris is going to be world champion? No, I think Oscar Piastri still has the edge. But the scales are starting to be a bit more balanced. That's the best way of putting it. The other big one is Liam Lawson. And this is going to sort of edge a little bit onto the talking point that we'll be talking about next. But Liam Lawson did absolutely incredibly. 6th place for Liam Lawson. Highest performing Red Bull family driver over the weekend. Yes, I know what happened to Verstappen. And we will touch on that a little bit. But yeah, fantastic qualifying, just solid weekend for Liam Lawson. So something definitely to be proud of. And that'll do his confidence the world of good. That'll do his demeanour the world of good. But let's talk about that a bit more. Let's talk about the Red Bull family a little bit more. Because you see, obviously, out of the 4 of them, Max Verstappen has the most amount of points. But it's interesting. Isaac Hadjar is next in terms of the amount of points he's got. And I think out of the 2 drivers, Liam Lawson spent the more amount of time in the RB team, and he has more points now than Yuki Tsunoda. This feels very weird. I know there's the thing of a second driver curse, second seat curse, but I can't work out exactly what's going wrong. I find it really difficult to believe that they're putting all the upgrades on Max Verstappen's car so he has the best car, and there is absolutely no chance that anyone's going to have of competing with him. I don't think any of the Red Bull drivers would keep it quiet for this long, whether that be Ricciardo, whether that be not necessarily Carlos Sainz, that was in Toro Rosso, but whether it be Alex Albon, whether it be Yuki Tsunoda, whether that be Liam Lawson or Sergio Perez. Do you really think they would have kept it quiet for this long that Max Verstappen's got all the upgrades? It can't be that. And whilst there's a lot of conversations about the car is designed for Max Verstappen, look, he is an incredible racing driver, but are there really no other drivers that drive similar to his style that will get the most out of it? That seems hard to believe. And what is going on there? Right now, the only theory that sort of makes sense right now, without any predictions of the future, is that Red Bull have thrown the towel in for this year, and that next year they're going to be focusing on the championship. But that's a risky strategy to be doing. For Max Verstappen, it's fine if they keep it. We'll obviously talk about that a little bit later. But if that's fine, it'll be fine for Max Verstappen. But in Yuki Tsunoda, Isaac Hadjar, and Liam Lawson, you've got 3 drivers that, yes, Yuki Tsunoda's been around for, 4 years now? Maybe 5? But he's still new to the big teams, let's say. Is it really worth damaging the career of a driver just to sacrifice a season? I'm not sure. And if it is this thing about gearing towards Max Verstappen, and these rumours about Max Verstappen being flirted with by Toto Wolff is not going to do anyone any good. But I also want to put a bit of a positive on Verstappen. Like I say, like we said in terms of Lando Norris, if we're going to say the negative, we're going to say the positive as well. I've got a huge positive to say about Max Verstappen, because this is the most mature I've ever seen him on the end of an incident like this. A lot of people are touching on the comments he said after the race, and absolutely those comments were amazing. But what stood out to me more was just seeing that incident live. First thing that stood out, obviously, Kimi Antonelli stayed in the car for a lot longer. I remember, so I watched this with my dad, and my dad was like, "Oh no, Kimi Antonelli's injured," and I was like, No, I don't think that's the reason why he's staying in his car. He's staying in his car because he's seen that Red Bull, the number one on it, and gone, oh no, I'm going to get absolutely slaughtered here. And what was interesting was as soon as both of them got out of the car, Verstappen wasn't gesticulating or waving fists or anything like that. The first thing he did was almost like a leaning into Kimi Antonelli and going almost like, what happened? Is everything all right? That calmed Kimi down. Now, of course, he was embarrassed and everything like that, but you look at the fact that Kimi Antonelli went into the Red Bull motorhome. Now, you could look at that and go, oh, look at that. Humble Kimi Antonelli and everything like that. But could you imagine how he would have felt if Max Verstappen was cold and didn't speak to him straight after the incident or anything like that? He would have been terrified of going into the motorhome. He would have been absolutely terrified. And they could have covered it up in many different ways. He could have invited Max Verstappen to the Mercedes motorhome, right? And with all this cozying up that seems to be going on between Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen, it could have fueled that rather than actually speaking to Kimi Antonelli. It could have been smoke and mirrors and everything like that and hidden away. But Max Verstappen made Kimi Antonelli feel welcome to go into another team's motorhome. So, absolutely brilliant. The way that Max Verstappen dealt with this is the Max Verstappen I want to see. The one that, if there's 50-50 incidents, he will claim his fair share. And if he has been absolutely incredibly wrong to the point where the other one's going to get a penalty, that he doesn't shout at the driver, he doesn't push him over like he did with Esteban Ocon, he doesn't do any of that. It's more of a case of, right, is everything okay? Are you okay? That's all that matters right now. And so, yeah, all of that is bundled up in the Red Bull situation. By the way, what are your thoughts on the Max Verstappen-Russell switch? Let me know in the comments below. I'm still not sure about it myself. I could see it, but I couldn't see it as well. And maybe in hindsight, if this is the case that it's going to be happening, and him being nice to Kimi Antonelli could make a whole lot of sense. But it is what it is. Right, we've got two major talking points to talk about last. Let's talk about the big one. Or what could be the bigger instant one. Williams. What has happened to Williams? Do you guys remember when James Vowles came in? How we were viewing what was going on with Williams? How impressive the Williams project must have been for Carlos Sainz to have signed with them over any other team. Let me just reel off the last three results for each driver. So Carlos Sainz, 14th place, 10th place, did not start. Alex Albon did not finish, did not finish, did not finish. And it feels like the big thing right now is reliability. I never thought I'd see that with regards to Williams. This almost feels like Williams of the 90s in terms of the poor reliability. Has someone forgot to plug the Duracell battery in? Like, genuinely. Has someone forgot to get the help of the Duracell bunny for once? The stuff that we've seen. There was an incident in practice in Canada where the back end of Albon's car completely flew off. Or was it in qualifying? I think it was even in qualifying. Completely flew off. Carlos Sainz's brakes refusing to let go and then setting themselves on fire. Whatever the incident was with Albon's car this time. Like, I touched on a little bit of Albon's villain arc. This is a team that has the capabilities of doing so much. And I really want this to work because we've seen teams in the past that have struggled and suffered and ended up dropping out. The days of the Brabham team, the Lotus team, those are the two that stand out for me. BRM, absolutely incredible teams, and then through one instant or another, just completely dropped out. And these were the teams that were the heart of Formula One. Williams is one of those teams that is the heart of Formula One. This has to work. Because if it doesn't, who's to say that James Vowles wouldn't start looking around and going, where else could I be team principal? Who's to say that Alex Albon wouldn't look around in terms of where he could get a drive? Or Carlos Sainz? We've obviously got the Cadillac project. There's going to be a massive jumbling up over the next 2 years. And we need Williams to be good so that they don't suffer as a result of it. I worry for Williams. Really worry. The next 2-3 races will be critical in terms of just how the team is viewed. Because right now, it's not a laughing stock. We won't say. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's a laughing stock, but it's a bit of a worry. I want the best for Williams, and this is concerning. So fingers crossed, we're going to start getting some better luck, let's say. Right, I said there was one I was going to be the most passionate about. Here we go. The race engineers for Ferrari. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the headlines are going to be about Lewis Hamilton almost seemingly talking to a brick wall when he was saying, I can stay out for longer. And Ricardo Adami, just felt like he wasn't listening. I mean, even this photo, it feels like he's half asleep listening to Hamilton, does he actually? But not much is being made about Charles Leclerc and Brian Bussey as well. There was that clip at the start of the race when Brian Bussey basically said, we need you to LICO, lift and coast. And Charles Leclerc was like going, I'm doing that. I'm already doing that. It almost feels like the race engineers are either AI themselves or they're reading off AI. This genuinely feels like race engineers in a Formula One game where they're just giving you instructions. You just do what you're told. Like, they're focusing way too much on the data and forgetting the fact that they have this human element. Sometimes you can't go off the data. You have two drivers, one a 7-time world champion, one who has the capabilities of being a multiple world champion. And it feels like they are not respected, especially during the race. And I don't think that is the case. It's just that's the feeling. And I mean, this is the thing: is that we look at good race engineers and driver pairings. Obviously, the big one that people talk about is Bono and Hamilton, of course. There's probably others that stand out and everything like that, but ultimately, the race engineer is meant to be the person representing the driver to the team and their ideas, not the one representing the team to the driver. You look at it in terms of the McLaren incident, it was a case of Will Joseph was almost going for Lando Norris and saying, right, it's you and me against everybody else. I'm not going to do a McLaren thing and tell you that you should do this, you should do that. And there comes at that point where for Lewis Hamilton, there was no risk of him if he stayed out longer. Was it Esteban Ocon that was 5th? No, it's Liam Lawson that was. No, George Russell was next up the road. 33 seconds up the road. There was no risk if Lewis Hamilton decided he was going to stay out longer, right? But it just Ugh, it just feels weird. It feels wrong. It feels disjointed. It feels like the race engineers are the weak point. Let's forget about Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc here. Just look at Ferrari as a whole. How many changes they have had. During their struggles, they've changed the team principal twice. They've gone from Arriva Bene to Mattia Binotto to Fred Vasseur. 3 people can't be wrong. 3 qualified people can't be wrong, especially when you got Mattia Binotto that seems to be doing well now at Sauber, right? You got the drivers. Sebastian Vettel, he can't have got it wrong. Carlos Sainz, he can't have got it wrong. And Lewis Hamilton, yeah, okay, there's claims that he's at the end of his career and he spent too long in Mercedes and probably won't feel comfortable at Ferrari. But surely that's not his job. It's up to Ferrari to make him feel welcome and comfortable, not for him to try and settle into their procedures. You need a race engineer for the driver, not a race engineer for the team. Because in a sense, that race engineer is the driver's only connection to the team while the race is going on. The driver needs the engineer, not a task merchant, not someone giving out instructions. Right now, with the exception of Brian Bussey, because he's come in fairly recently, because it was Javier Marcos beforehand, the race engineers are the only things that have changed that haven't changed, and it feels like they're the ones that need to. Goodness sake, the racing director, Laura McKees, is now the team principal for RB, and look what is bloody happening to Team RB. The race engineers need to change. So, put yourself in for Fred Vasseur's shoes, and you're being given this dilemma. Who do you hire as race engineers instead? And I want you to be realistic with these suggestions. Here's mine. Of course, Pete Bonington, would be the top of everyone's list, but he is absolutely loving life with Kimi Antonelli at the moment. There's no chance he's leaving. Last year there was an opportunity, but this year that's it. That's not a chance, because I don't think Pete Bonington would sacrifice my train again. The working relationship with Kimi Antonelli just to go back with Lewis Hamilton, as good as that is, right? Races run. So who else? Here's a couple of thoughts. Let's start off with looking at Red Bull. Because you see, Max Verstappen had a substitute race engineer, an experienced race engineer, but a substitute race engineer nonetheless this weekend. Could Simon Rennie be tempted into a more permanent role and almost like going, right, you spent time with Sebastian Vettel, you spent time with Max Verstappen. How do you fancy some time with Lewis Hamilton? And again, listening through qualifying, listening through practice, it felt like Simon Rennie was a listening ear. And it feels like Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc both need a listening ear, not a taskmaster. Here's another thought. Could they take advantage of what's going on in terms of Russell and Verstappen? With all the rumours, could they swoop in? Nick GP Lambiasa. Take Marcus Dudley from Mercedes. Again, they're fighty, but they at least show that they listen. And it'll be a bit of comedy. I think it'd be quite a bit of comedy, actually, seeing Lambiasa and Charles Leclerc talk to each other. Here's my wild card pick, though. My wild card pick. And I think this could happen because of the connections that these two teams have. I would be recommending them to go to the Haas F1 team and take Laura Mueller the way that the relationship has gone between Laura Mueller and Esteban Ocon, they're having fun together. She reminds me a bit of Bono. I think Lewis Hamilton and Laura Mueller would be hilarious together. They'd be brilliant together. Absolutely proud of each other. Now, this is the thing. It feels weird me basically saying that two people should be fired and things like that. But I think it would do Brian Bussey and Ricardo Adami some good as well. Adami's spent, I think it's like 7-8 years with Ferrari, and maybe it's not. He needs to change the pace himself, and maybe moving across would be a good change up for him. So he's so used to the Ferrari culture that probably he thinks, well, I'm more Ferrari than you, Lewis Hamilton, so you don't understand. We talk a lot about silly seasons for drivers. I feel like it's worthwhile having a silly season for race engineers. It'd be good. And what a great settling in period for the lot of them. It just feels right. But then again, I have no experience being a racing driver. I have no experience being a race engineer, and I have no experience of being a team principal. So what do I know? But those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts in the with the Austrian Grand Prix? Was there anything that stood out for you? Was there any big talking points that I might have missed? Feel free to pop them in the comments below, and pop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the review we had, and have a look at the previous ones that we had. And hope you enjoy the next one. It's what I consider to be the gem of the calendar next in the Silverstone Grand Prix. It's going to be exciting. It's potentially going to be a little bit wild in terms of weather, which we always love. So, who knows? And until next time, guys, take care.